Welcome friends, I am Rajesh Asudani Raqeeb. As all of you know, with me is Dr Vinod Asudani.
Very good afternoon, Rajesh ji.
Ji Vinod ji, today we are going to take up something which is not strictly the literature, actually. It's
But
not
I
a
would like
novel.
exactly,
it's not
exactly.
A,
Right. But one thing is there, literature percolates into each and every branch of learning.
Yes,
The understanding of all these fields helps one to understand and appreciate literature in a better manner.
definitely.
And the modern criticism derives its forces from all non-literary or extra-literary domains, and modern critics try to integrate these pieces of knowledge with the literary sensibility.
So therefore, we have been discussing from time to time some books which have a bearing on the general understanding of the milieu, we can call it. And we have already discussed for the sex to superconsciousness of Osho, and which you have liked also, many of you have commented also and written to us also. Today we are going to take up such another book from
Yes.
Osho also, that is the Book of Women.
Osho has emerged as one of the most significant philosophical voices all over the world in the recent times.
Even though he has not been established as the philosopher in the academic sense, right? Maybe a lot of work is required to cull out his philosophical principles and establish them academically.
But Rajesh ji, I'm sure that his interpretation and his perception on different issues
Yeah,
compel the readers to relook or rethink all those issues in a fresh light.
definitely. And the way he puts the things across, it's a fresh perspective, unconditioned perspective, we can call it. Only thing is that he has recorded all his lectures and he has not written down them in the form of well-researched books. Perhaps this has prevented from him being taken as the full-fledged philosopher. But what we can do, we can collate the lectures, and this is what some people are doing. Osho International Meditation Resort, they have brought out some of his compilations of some of his lectures in the form of books.
So today we are going to discuss the book entitled The Book of Women.
There are many of his lectures given on the topic of women. They have been compiled and presented in the form of a book.
Women, some people believe that they are mysterious, they cannot be understood ever.
Yeah, and even Osho seems to believe it right in the very first sentence of the book. Woman is not to be understood, she has to be loved, he says.
Now,
Right?
how do you look at this sentence, Rajesh ji? Don't you think this can trigger
Yeah.
a controversy, especially among those who are staunch supporters of the feminist movement?
Yeah, definitely. Because what I think, woman or man, primarily we are human beings. Whatever the gender differences, they do not make us into separate species. So when we say that a woman
Is to be
is
not-
to be simply loved and not
to be
understood, taken literally or taken surfacically, this statement may backfire.
Exactly,
Right?
it seems to be quite a derogatory
derogatory.
statement
Definitely.
to the woman. But if you go deeper and as you proceed with this book, you really understand what exactly is the connotation of this sentence. Woman is not to be understood in the sense. Basically, they are more governed by the mystery of emotion rather than the rationality of thought.
They're more the creatures of emotion and creatures of nurture rather than analysis and breaking down the things, right?
And then Osho comes to attack modern feminist movement of women's liberation. He says that this is not proceeding on the right lines. What exactly women do? They try to imitate, they try to copy all the manners and mannerisms of males, and precisely it destroys their essential feminine character, essential feminine temperament.
And we can try to understand his views about women by logically following this. He says that all of us know that equality is not uniformity. When we say men and women are equal, we do not mean really that all their activities should be uniform. Both of them should go to military, both of them, no. Biology is there, even psychology is there. It has differentiated between men on one hand
So
and
equality
women on
means
another.
they have to be treated equally.
They have to- yeah.
They should be given equal opportunities.
Yes.
They should be given equal dignity, respect. That is equality. But equality is misperceived as uniformity. So you are forcing the woman to go to the military. You are forcing the woman to take up the jobs of cab drivers and to work them at petrol pumps
Yeah.
and this and that. So this is not really the equality, because women are suited for some professions as men are better suited for other professions. So this type of difference has to be recognized. That is what Osho believes.
And the tragedy is that many of the women, they themselves have, imbibed this consciousness itself that maleness is the standard, and we have to behave like men. Then
Not only dress,
will
not
be
only
equal.
dress and work
Yeah.
like men, but even behave and talk like men. So this itself defeats their purpose. This itself shows that women are inferior and males' standards are superior, and that is why you imitate them.
The superiority of the males that has been reinforced so much so that even the women, many of the women have come to internalize it. This is what Osho also lays bare in his treatise.
So that is what he says, that yes, they are equal, but it's not necessary for them to do and talk like men, dress like men, work like men.
As it is not necessary for the men to bear children.
Exactly.
Right? Otherwise, the men should also fight for bearing the children. Our right to bear the children is ours also.
Equality is the recognition by male and woman to each other.
Yeah. And then here Osho goes deeper into this problem. He says the current liberation movement is not really well placed because the women just fight in the same manner as the men have been fighting. Basically, he says the categories of male and female are more of a psychological construct rather than biology. Biology, of course, we have different body structures, external as well as internal. But basically, we can divide people into men and women based on the psychological traits.
And even modern psychology accepts this phenomena, that there is a feminine aspect in the man and masculine aspect in woman. So those people who are nurturing, compassionate,
Caring.
affectionate, caring, they are more of a woman.
Where biologically they may be men or women, no issues.
Interestingly, he says Buddha, Christ, Mahavir Jain, and all such great saints who have shown compassion and love for the people,
Yeah.
they are more of women, less of men.
And moreover, people who believe in analysis, breaking apart the things and of asserting themselves too much, they fall into the male domain of psychology, and many of the women are like that also.
Then he goes on discussing the other issues, for example, the issue of the creativity among women.
Yeah, that is a very great issue. But before that, Vinodji, these traits, psychological traits, okay, we can label them as masculine traits and feminine traits, but they can be present biologically in either of the sexes, isn't it?
Yes.
So basically, Osho says the world would have been a much better place had the women in the psychological sense, right?
Yes.
Women been in charge of the world for so long, the world would have been a better place, because the men have been in charge of the world, so wars and all the things. Of course, all these statements are not to be taken like truths of physics, 100% true or 99% true. No, but they are these psycho-philosophical truths which have the greater potential to be true, I would
And
say.
another very important thing that he draws our attention to, he says, if women continue to be women and men continue to be men, psychologically, there would be greater attraction between the two sexes,
Yes.
two genders, and only then this world can become a better place to live. Because woman must love and man must love, and man can love to woman and woman can love to man. And if woman behave like a man,
Then
the
the-
charm, the fascination between man and woman relationship is bound to decline.
Definitely it is. Even nowadays the marriage has become unisex, even so this aspect we have to ponder over this aspect, the essential difference between the genders, that is the cornerstone of attraction.
Exactly, because as a psychologist,
Yeah.
Rajesh ji, we can understand that when male gets attracted to female, it is not because the other person is biologically female. She behaves like a female.
Definitely.
She poses like a female. She appears like a female, and that is why the male is attracted. Similarly, when female is attracted to men, it is not because biologically the other person is male, but he is masculine, he is assertive, he is analytical, he is supportive. So all these traditional male characters are there, qualities are there, and only then this attraction comes into being.
So the difference between the two sets of the traits, simply put, I mean,
Yes.
of course, it is oversimplification, but the difference between the two sets of the traits, they may be reversely positioned also. A woman who is quite assertive, analytical, may be attracted to a man who is quite, nurturing, submissive.
Yes.
Definitely, it can happen. So this is the psychological aspect of being a woman or a man is much more important rather than the biological. Perhaps biologically, Vinodji,
Yes.
we are on the cusp of a revolution where bearing the children also will be outsourced to machines.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Artificial homes are there
in
in the
and
laboratories.
artificial intelligence can do wonders in this area as well.
So then why men and women will be attracted essentially to each other? It is because of the psychological traits, the
Exactly.
behavioral traits,
Right.
not the body structures, basically.
Even when you look, when you hear the voices of male and female, there is a difference.
Yeah.
Why otherwise the nature should impart the different voices to male and female?
Naturally. And even I have a suspicion, Vinodji, we have to conduct empirical study to verify this. Even the homosexual couples,
Yes.
gay or lesbian couples, sex differences are not there.
No.
Still they are attracted to one another.
But one of
Why?
them is like male and another is like
Like
female.
a female. In the traits, in the psychological traits.
Yes, it is there.
So this is a fundamental point which Osho is making here, which we really should think over it. And then Osho, before coming to the creativity part of it, Osho envisages a totally different system of marriage and family.
Yes. He believes that the institution of marriage is an evil.
Evil.
It has to be destroyed. It has to be eliminated from the society. At the face value, it may seem to be quite unacceptable proposition. But if you go deeper, the institution of marriage, where the man and woman come together and they make a commitment to live for entire life, seems to be quite unnatural. It may be necessary for the economic reasons. It may be necessary for the bringing up of the children, etc. But naturally speaking, two people living together for the life is something that Osho is not ready to accept.
It's very artificial. Even when you read Engels and Marx, the evolution of family and private property, they are interlinked. As we have progressed towards capitalism, ownership of the private property, monopoly over the private property, this is mine, this is thine. Similar thing we have done with the people. This is my spouse, this is my husband,
My
this is
love,
my
my
wife.
wife.
So Osho
We
says,
possess them rather than love them.
that this is artificial, and we cling to it artificially due to pragmatic reasons.
And he says, if you really love the person, you are bound to give him freedom. And in our systems, you simply surrender your freedom and become a wife or husband.
That's it for life. So Osho says that we should be liberal in it. We should be together as long as we love each other really. Otherwise, we should go apart without any fuss, right?
Isn't it? There is no need of formal marriage. There is no need of formal divorce. Of course, we know that these are very difficult thoughts even today to be digested by many.
And as far as the children are concerned, he says, yes, it is a problem when you procreate children. So if you don't have children, that is very good. If you don't have, but if you have, then we should emulate, formulate the system of a commune rather than the family. Commune is something in between the family and society.
It's a small communities
Small community.
where the many people live together.
And the responsibility of the children is of commune, not of the individual parents.
And he says that in these type of communes, children have many role models. It's not only their own mother, but there are many aunts, right? There are many other women.
Many uncles are there, fathers. So person is not simply stereotypically following their parents. Otherwise, what happens at present? We only have our parents for role model. Even in our spouses, we try to search our parents.
Exactly. So this is a problem. And another important thing that he discusses, that the question of love.
Yeah, question of love, and it should be, many people have dubbed it or called it free love, but he says it should truly arise from your heart as well as mind, and you should love a person, not simply possess a person or not simply be infatuated with the person.
And
But then love cannot be crystallized, cannot be frozen for life naturally, because it's a a feeling which demands freedom, which demands expression. If there is no freedom, then there is no love. If I am commanded to love, then I can't love.
And interestingly compares it to yoga, meditation,
Yeah.
and prayer. And he says, love is greater than all these three.
this.
Those who are not able to love truly, then they meditate, they go for yoga, and then they pray. Because they require something that can sustain their life. And among all these four, love is the greatest four that can sustain you.
Yeah. And this idea of commune, Vinodji, it has been tried also somewhere, like in Israel, kibbutz were
Yes,
there.
yes.
But of course, there are mixed consequences there also. We cannot say that it's a purely a good idea. But of course, this is one of the interesting alternatives, at least.
Exactly. And then he comes to speak,
Creativity.
creativity.
That's a very important part of this book as well. He says that men and women, the creative, both are creative. But as a rule, we find that men are creative in many fields, from music, art, science, everything.
He says that it's very difficult to have Shakespeare or Leonardo da Vinci or Michelangelo
In
or,
women.
or Beethoven among women.
Now, prima facie people may object, but let us confess that if you survey the world over, and even Simone de Beauvoir also accepts it,
Yes, yes.
that women, it's very difficult to come across an Einstein in women, right?
Shakespeare
Or
in
Freud
women.
in women, Shakespeare in women, Leonardo da Vinci in women, Premchand in women, right? So why? The question is why? We have to think over from whatever orientation you come. But this question, we have to think over it. And what answer?
And ironically enough, a woman is able to create life. When she is able to create life, why she should not be able to create in the field of art and literature?
Yeah. The prima facie answer which Osho tries to give here is that women creates another human being. This is the supreme form of creativity. And therefore, she doesn't feel any need to create anything else.
Because she has created something greater and real.
Yeah.
She has created real human beings, real boys and girls. So there is no need to create a person in painting or in poetry.
And whereas males or men, they can't create another human being. They simply can inseminate, impregnate. I should not call it impregnate also, Vinodji, because impregnate is both the partners. They are.
Yes.
Generally people use the word impregnate, but I use the word inseminate.
Exactly, because they are not able to create human beings.
Yeah.
Therefore, their energy is diverted to create something else in art and philosophy.
They have an inferiority complex.
Yes.
Osho says men have inferiority complex.
And
that
in
I
order
should
to
create
overcome
something
that
at least.
inferiority, in order to overcome their sense of lacuna, they try to create something that they can say that it is immortal. Shakespeare's art is immortal. Leonardo da Vinci's paintings are immortal. And they derive satisfaction from being creative in this way.
And another problem with the issue with the women, Osho also says, they have been continually pregnant throughout the past.
Because before the discovery of this modern contraceptives, all their energy was wasted or invested in the reproductivity.
In a lifetime, women used to bear 10 children, 15 children. Even I have come across women bearing 19 children.
So in such case, they do not have any time left to pursue art and philosophy.
Yeah.
So how they are expected to create anything even average?
Now there are now in the present world, both these things actually are not valid. Osho also says that. See the dynamism of his thinking. He says now women are not continually pregnant. 1 or 2 children at best. We are already overpopulated. So they should also refrain from having more children, and they are refraining from having more children.
Now the creative energy is available with
available. And now they can create magical things, miraculous things, great art. Now perhaps we are moving towards age where women will be artists, singers, composers, authors, and far better than the men, he says.
And he says once the woman's creativity is awakened properly and channelized properly, they can be far more creative than men. And this is quite possible because biologically they are creative.
Yeah.
So if they channelize their energy to the to the field of art and literature, definitely they can be more creative. And we are waiting for that age when we can see
Because-
woman Shakespeare and
Yes.
Beethoven and all these
Correct.
Wagner.
Because creativity is not foreign to the psyche of a woman, isn't it? She creates right from the childhood. Her entire existence moves towards creating another human being. But now that we are overpopulated and women are free to pursue education and contraception is available, so they can indulge their energies in other substitute forms of creation, we can call it, and we can hope to have masterpieces, not only the masters but masterpieces from
Yes.
women.
And then he talks about the sexuality of men and women.
Yeah, definitely. That's different. Everybody will admit that in our today's age of unisex, we have even reduced this thing to simple having sexual intercourse and like that. But it's entirely a different experience for both
Man's
of them.
sexuality is concentrated to his genitals, where the
Genitals.
woman's sexuality is diffused in her
Diffused,
entire
entire
body.
body.
And she's capable of having multiple orgasms, which is impossibility for any man. And therefore he says that woman, enjoys the sex in a better manner, provided the man knows how to make her enjoy.
Yeah. Many a times it happens that they don't enjoy because men dominate physically as well as psychologically. So all her sexuality is muted.
And he says historically, men have been afraid of this tremendous power of sexuality that is very much present in woman, and therefore men have been devising one tool or the other
Another.
in order to
Yes.
suppress and repress this extraordinary power of sex that is there in woman. For example, in Christianity, church, and in all other religions, they devised various traditions and conventions where woman is not even allowed to masturbate, to fantasize, so that her sexuality remains under check.
Definitely.
And
Because-
then she is told that she cannot even think of other male, that is a sin, it is associated with the sin, and she is frightened that she will be suffering in the next world. And a poor woman, they have fallen into this trap and they have stopped thinking, masturbating and fantasizing. And that is how throughout these ages, till their modern liberation, where women have asserted themselves sexually, these tools have been employed successfully by historical traditions and religions to keep them under check. And then he says that if you look at the common posture of the intercourse where men dominates, it shows that you are inferior. She's not given the freedom even of the moment.
Actually, he says the woman is such a delicate being that she should be on the top, not underneath.
Exactly. This is really something that we must think seriously, that what kind of, where does this tradition come from?
Yeah, many of us, I would bet Vinodji on this.
Yes.
Many of the males are horrified by the idea of women on top.
Yes.
They
Because
don't, or women taking initiative in sex.
Yes.
They are horrified by this idea.
That means, and again, if you look at the language, man makes love to woman.
Yeah.
As if
the woman is only a passive
object. It's a
right?
man who can make, and she is only receiver. She receives the love. Why woman cannot make love to
Actually,
man?
both make love to each other.
Right. So love is not to be made. Love is to be created. Love has to evolve between the two people, two existences, I will say. And when they connect to each other at many points, only then the love comes to be.
But many times I am surprised how the simple structural difference between the male body and the female body has been tremendously exploited by the men socially. I'm really appalled at this truth.
And at this point, I think the education can play a greater role. Boys and girls have to be educated about each other's sexuality, about each other's emotional makeup, about each other's behavior, so that a better understanding can emerge between the two sexes.
And here one question also in that very book I found very interesting question by a woman. She says to Osho that you say that we should not be involved, or we should not be lost in the bare existence. We are something different from our body or even our mind, right? She says, but I find it very difficult not to identify with my periods because they are such an occurrence that I am totally consumed by them. And he answers, yes, it is difficult because such a momentous biological and psychological occurrence. But I think he doesn't give the satisfactory
And he
answer to
says
that.
even one
Yeah.
in a single month,
Yeah.
there are a few days, 3-4 days.
Even men also
men are also
are,
feeling
yeah.
disturbed and irritated. And if man and woman live together for a very long time, they can understand when. Of course, in women it's quite visible, right,
Yeah.
when they get a menstrual cycle.
Yeah.
But even she can understand when her partner feels disturbed in for those few
4
days.
3-4
So they both can be considerate to each other to resolve this issue. I think this is really important.
Very subtle observation.
Very subtle observation.
Which he makes. Many people don't even realize this.
But I think it happens
Yeah.
because if you observe yourself in a month,
Yeah.
you will definitely find that there are a few days, maybe 2, 3, 4, whatever.
Yeah, where you are perturbed, where you are down. I mean, don't really feel like, just like the period in a woman, right?
Yes, it may not have the physical manifestation,
Yeah.
but it's definitely is a psychologically observable thing.
But then the question of identification or non-identification with such a momentous occurrence like a period, I think even philosophically Osho does not answer her properly.
Yes.
How not to identify and why not to identify with such a great occurrence. And then maternity also he touches in summary, in the last chapters. He says relation of a mother to her child is much more than a relation of a father, because the child is part and parcel of her body. But then she has to learn to respect the different existence of the child and should not impose or imprint herself always on the children.
Yeah, and he says, interesting enough, it's not that all the qualities in women, they are good. They are irritable.
Of course.
They have mood swings.
Yeah.
They are haughty, arrogant, sometimes exploitative, and that is why majority of the children inherit these traits.
Definitely, he says, because women have been dominated physically, they can't fight with the men. Therefore, they have devised the subtle ways of manipulating men and getting equal with them. So all these qualities.
Their anger, I believe, is displaced toward their children very,
Yeah.
very often. In the modern time, it has been observed
Yes.
that the modern women are so controlling
Yes.
and so possessive of their children that many a time children feel suffocated at their hands.
Like mothering and smothering, two are very closely related words.
Yes.
So in this way,
So-
Osho has delineated a lot of aspects.
Yeah,
about
if
women.
our readers and viewers, if you read this book by yourself, you'll find much more interesting things.
You may
in this
agree,
book.
you may not agree, but you can't ignore.
Yeah, that's very important
Yeah.
about Osho. He himself has
Yeah.
said at one place that though there are people who can admire me, there are people who can hate me, but you cannot simply be
Yes.
indifferent to me.
Indifferent to me, right?
So this is his strength.
Yes.
So friends, tell how you like this discussion on the book of woman.
Yeah.
Yes, we will wait for your responses, and we will take leave with a promise that we'll be back with some other discussion on this channel through Literary Lens.